I've never been a superstitious guy, especially when it comes to a full moon, until I became a cop. Hey guys, what's going on? I hope you are having a fantastic start of your week so far. Guys, I have to say it's been a long time since I had a video idea pop into my head and I could not wait to film it and talk about it. As soon as yesterday morning rolled around, I knew I had to do a video about the night before. So as most of you know, Saturday was a full moon and I would like to think that I'm a logical thinker. I have never been the superstitious type, but when it comes to a full moon as a cop, or I've talked to ER nurses as well, the full moon, I don't know what it is, but people act completely crazy during a full moon. So anyway, Saturday night was completely crazy. There was only 3 of us that were working this side of town. So we were very short-handed. Saturday night was just call to call to call. The best way I know how to describe it, I've told you guys stories about the city before. Saturday night was definitely one of those nights where I felt like I was back in the city again. I was a supervisor on duty for the area that I was working, and we were literally hopping call to call to call all night long. We were going to domestics, we went to several domestics, went to person with a gun. Some guy got hit by a truck, but then it turns out it was actually an assault. He died while we were there, and then they were able to bring him back. Then the guy just wakes up in the hospital, pulls all his stuff off, and just walks out. He was dead just an hour before that, and then he just plucks everything out and out the door. But the craziest part about Saturday, and you guys are probably gonna think I'm nuts when I tell you this story. We receive a call for a neighbor that hears broken glass next to their house. Now keep in mind, the house next to theirs has been abandoned for several years. So one of my guys arrives on scene and he actually actively hears glass breaking as well. So of course when I hear this on the radio, I'm like, oh shit, this might be legit, let me step it up. So I get there about 15 seconds later, and while I'm walking up to the house, I actually see a flashlight kind of shining here and there up in the trees on the right side of the house. Him and I are about to try to make contact with whoever might be in there, and another unit shows up. I have them go to the street behind this house so that they can try to intercept somebody if they run out the back door. So as soon as the 3rd officer is behind the residence, we go to the side of the house. It's me and my partner's right behind me. We're walking along the side of the house and it's impossible to be quiet. There's leaves everywhere. This house is just like surrounded by trees. So none of the neighbors can really see anything but the very front of the house. As we're walking along the side of this house, I see somebody's head pop out of this broken window. Of course, I draw down on him. I'm yelling at him, let me see your hands, let me see your hands. He had the weirdest demeanor. When I was yelling at him to see his hands and all that, he was extremely calm. Normally, if we catch a burglar inside of a residence, you know, they're panicked. So they either are scared and they give up or they try to run. This guy didn't show any fear at all. He was so nonchalant, it was creepy. You know, I've told you guys about those little hairs that stand up on the back of your neck sometimes. This guy immediately, from the start, gave me the creeps. And there was nothing physically intimidating about him. So I'm yelling at him to show me his hands, and he just puts them up through the window and he's like, my hands are up. So I tell him to crawl out of the window. He comes out and my partner puts him in handcuffs and we take him to the front of the house. The first thing that I noticed that was really strange was he was wearing a green shirt and he had written all over it in like Sharpie. And it's like he tried to make a basketball jersey almost. He had like the number 22 on the back, but it was written in Sharpie with really bad handwriting, mind you. The other weird thing is that he had writing on his shoes. We take him to the 3rd officer, who now comes back to the front, and we leave him with him while we go and clear the residence. At this point, we are planning on arresting him for burglary if he was taking stuff out, or criminal trespass if he had just broken in and not taken anything. We leave him with the 3rd officer, we go and clear this house. Guys, when I tell you this was the creepiest house I have been in years, I don't know how to describe it. We clear abandoned houses all the time, so cobwebs and stuff like that, we're used to that. And I can't explain it, but the feeling I got in this house, and what's weird is my partner had the same exact feeling. You guys are gonna think I'm exaggerating. I swear this is exactly how I felt going into this house. I don't know what it was, but it felt like every corner you turned, you were going to find a stack of dismembered bodies. This was the creepiest house I have been in several years. And I've been in thousands of houses over the years. None of them have creeped me out like this house. So we're going through this house, and that's just it. There was nothing really significant about this house. You know, there was nothing inherently creepy about it other than this weird feeling I had. Except, as we're clearing this house, we're going through, and I'm noticing that there's writing on the walls. There's writings on every wall in the house. So we get done clearing, we establish that nobody else was in there. So then we go back and we start looking at some of these writings. Guys, when I say there was writing on the walls, it was like from top to bottom, wall to wall, small like weird sayings. One of the sayings on these walls, and I'll tell you how random this was, one of the sayings on the walls was, you have to be careful as a gay male having heterosexual incest. What? And then this guy drew like a smiley face with like words melting out of its mouth. It was weird. So we come back outside, we figure out who this guy is. The weird part was we could not arrest him. We couldn't arrest him because when we checked his ID, the address listed on his ID was this house. When I see this, I'm like, what the hell? How? I've never had a call like this before. Now, I don't know how it is in other states, but in Georgia, it is not illegal to break into your own house. You can walk around the entire perimeter of your house and just start smashing out windows. There's no law that's being broken. So if a neighbor calls in and is like, hey, my neighbor's going around smashing every window, he's busted his door, there's nothing we can do because there's been no crime committed. The only time there would be a crime committed would be if it was an act of anger when you're in a domestic dispute. So if you're angry at your partner and then you go and do that, then it falls under criminal trespass, which is damage to property in Georgia. I know, Georgia has weird laws. So anyway, we get back out, we're talking to this guy. My partner calls his brother. He finds his brother. His brother lives in a different part of the state, but he's actually in Washington State at the time. So his brother says he's not supposed to be there, but he doesn't have any paperwork showing that he's not supposed to be there, so we legally have to let him go and he can go back inside the house. This guy had the most calm demeanor of anybody that's ever had the police point weapons at them. But again, the weird part about all this was that those hairs that were standing up on the back of my neck anytime I was around this guy, and my partner had the same feeling. And like I said, there was nothing physically intimidating about him. He was a short, chubby, balding guy. The best way I know how to describe what he looks like, have you guys ever seen Honey Boo Boo's mom? He looks like a male balding version of her, except a little bit skinnier. Yeah, he looks like a giant thumb. So obviously by this point I've established that there is something wrong with this guy. And I ended up asking him, you know, is there any help that I can get for you? Is there anything I can do? And he just looked at me with the most calm face and was just like, I don't want your help. He states the reason why he went through the window is because his brother had not given him a key to the front door. It's in an estate. Anyway, that aside, let's get to the interesting stuff. So we end up letting this guy go. The neighbors are outside because they're the ones that heard it, so we're talking to them. And I ended up telling them something is not right with this guy. You guys try to be vigilant about your property, you know, maybe keep an eye out for the next couple days. Here's where things get weird. We let this guy go. He crawls back into the house. A few minutes later, he comes back out. He's wearing a hat backwards, and he's just walking down the road talking to himself at 3 o'clock in the morning. Me and my partner, we end up going back to the station. We call his brother again, and I told him, I said, tell me about your brother. You know, what should we expect from him? What's he like? Tell me a little bit about his history. So his brother ends up telling me that he's into methamphetamine and prostitutes. So my thought is, okay, so he has a drug problem, and that's kind of what's causing all this psychosis. His brother's like, no, that's not what's causing it. He's been diagnosed as severely paranoid schizophrenic. Oh, nice. Okay. Does he have violent tendencies? He's like, yeah, he does. He has numerous assault charges. Wonderful. That's awesome to know. So the brother's basically like, I'm the only family member left. Both of our parents are dead. Nobody else cares about him. He doesn't know really anybody else in the family. I don't know his half-brothers. And he's like, I just don't know what to do for the guy anymore. So come to find out, these writings on the wall, the way he explained it to us was he does it because it's therapeutic to him. Well, his brother said he hears voices in his head and he tends to act out on those. So I end up looking this guy up in our system to see what kind of history he has. This guy has a very violent past. He's got obstruction on law enforcement. He's got harassment, stalking. These are all things that play into somebody that could be very, very dangerous. He's also been banned from half the stores in this town. Here's where it gets even more creepy, and this is where I will end things. I found a report of a lady that lives like 4 houses down from him. A year ago, this guy was arrested because this lady heard some noise going on in her house. She comes out of her bedroom. This same guy is standing in the hallway in the dark, staring at her. Yeah, this same guy that we were out with was literally standing in this lady's hallway in the dark, just staring at her at 2 o'clock in the morning. So what does she do? She does what any normal person would do. She shuts the door, she calls 911. And I know some of you are gonna be like, oh, he'd be a shot ass. If you were in my house, I would shoot too. But here's the weird part. Even when he knew that she was gonna call the police, he just stood there. The cops literally found him in the same spot that she saw him when they came into her house. He didn't try to lunge at her. He didn't try to fight the police that night. But the fact he was just standing there in the dark staring at her was really creepy. So fast forward to morning time, the day shift sergeant comes in and I tell him about this guy. He was like, is his name so-and-so? I'm like, yeah, that's him. He's like, man, we got out with him yesterday on day shift. Guess what the sergeant said? The sergeant was like, you know those hairs that stand up on the back? I said, I know where you're going with that. Me and my partner said the exact same thing. Then the sergeant said something that has stuck with me since Sunday morning. The sergeant's words were, this guy is gonna end up being a SWAT standoff. I started thinking about it. He's right. His demeanor was calm, but he gave us all this vibe of he would have no problem like wearing your skin while walking around in women's underwear listening to Elton John. I know, it's quite a visual. So anyway guys, that is it for today. I'm already going on 20 minutes recording. This is probably one of the longest videos I've done. But anyway, that is it guys. I could not wait to tell you about this story and tell you about this creepy guy. I hope we don't have any more problems with, but I have a feeling we will, especially with his extensive history. I was actually gonna get my partner, Twin 12 is the nickname we came up with. I was gonna get Twin 12 here to talk with me about it. Kind of short on time. I have to go to Atlanta tonight. Either way, I could not wait to tell you guys about it. I know it doesn't translate very well on video, but I can assure you guys this was one of the creepiest people I have ever been around. This guy gave you that like serial killer kind of vibe. Anyway guys, that is it for today. I have not been this hyped to make a video in a very long time. So anyway, I was very anxious to share it with you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful week and I will see you guys very, very soon.